Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Vice President Sara Duterte has set her sights on nothing less than the presidency 2 years from now. She's
Duterte may or may not be on trial way before 2028. In 5 days, we find out if Digong will physically turn up in his confirmation of charges hearing.
Ako si Sara Duterte, tatakbo bilang Pangulo ng Pilipinas. Syukran.
Siguro tingin niya, matatakot niya, masisindak niya ang mga kongresista. Hindi ubra yung ganyang mga gimmick.
It may affect how the voting will come out. I hope that we will be as independent as possible.
Tonight's big story is the big announcement from Vice President Sara Duterte. Yes, she will be running for president in 2028. In what's supposed to be a usual press conference by the Office of the Vice President, VP Sara dropped the bombshell. Take a listen.
It took me 47 years to understand that my life was never meant to be only mine. For a long time, I questioned the weight of responsibility to my family, to my country, to everyone who called on me. Ako si Sara Duterte, tatakbo bilang Pangulo ng Pilipinas.
In her speech, Duterte again took shots at her former unit team running mate, President Bongbong Marcos, capitalizing on the corruption allegations against his administration.
Sa unang mga buwan ng aming mga termino, nakita ko na ang kawalan ng katapatan ni Bongbong Marcos Jr. sa mga pangakong binitawan noong kampanya. Pati na sa kanyang sinumpaang tungkulin para sa bayan. Hindi ko kinaya na maging bahagi ng 2025 national budget na tadtad ng katiwalian. Pinili kong umalis sa kabinete kahit alam ko na mula pa noong 2023 na ang magiging kapalit ay ang aking impeachment.
Duterte then asked her followers for their forgiveness over her support for Marcos during the last presidential election.
Ayan. Humihingi ako ng paumanhin. Patawad kung tinulungan ko mahalal si BBM bilang Pangulo ng ating bansa. Patawad kung hanggang ngayon ay marami pa ring Pilipino ang nalulunod sa baha nang dahil sa malawakang korupsyon. Hindi ako kailanman natakot sa pagsira nila sa pangalan ko. Ngunit may takot ako para sa ating mga anak. May takot ako para sa susunod na henerasyon. May takot ako para sa mga kababayan nating walang bahay sa ibang bansa. Walang pangalawang pasaporte. Walang ibang matatakbuhan kundi ang Pilipinas. Kahit ito'y patuloy na nalulugmok sa kahirapan.
Duterte and the president ran together 4 years ago but have since become bitter rivals. In 2024, the lower house launched a corruption inquiry into Duterte's alleged misuse of government funds. Their relationship soured further last year when Marcos signed off on the arrest of her father, who is currently facing charges before the International Criminal Court. VP Duterte herself was impeached last year and is currently facing new complaints before the lower house.
The vice president's announcement drew mixed reactions from Congress. Critics see it as a political stunt meant to divert attention from her pending impeachment complaints. Mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes with the story.
The timing couldn't be more perfect. This was the Makabayan Bloc's reaction to Vice President Sara Duterte's announcement of her presidential bid in 2028. The group says it was simply a move by the VP to protect her from a second impeachment. ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino said it straight.
Siguro tingin niya, matatakot niya, masisindak niya ang mga kongresista dahil patakbo siyang presidente. Pero makikita natin na dahil napakatibay ng batayan sa kanyang impeachment, hindi ubra yung ganyang mga gimmick at malalantad muli ang kabulukan sa ginawa niya sa confidential funds.
The House's progressive group called on the public and their fellow lawmakers not to be swayed by Sara's words and continue seeking accountability from the VP. The Makabayan Bloc endorsed one of the 3 new impeachment complaints against Duterte, saying there's solid evidence to impeach her a second time.
No, ang tanong ay nasaan ang kinurakot na pera ng taong bayan? Paano ito ibabalik at paano po kayo mananagot? Yun po ang dapat na tanong na isagot ni VP Sara Duterte. All else, gaya po ng pag-indicate ng higher ambitions, they are distractions po.
Hamon din yan talaga dito sa mga miyembro ng Kongreso na ipakita nila yung kanilang pagiging tapat dun sa sinumpaang tungkulin na magsilbi sa interes ng taong bayan at hindi yung mga pansariling interes.
This early, Senior Deputy Majority Leader Lawrence Defensor admits confirmation of Duterte's run in 2028 will likely affect the impeachment vote. Defensor says the 20th Congress is very different from the 19th Congress that impeached her, with lawmakers now having to contend with the Vice President's winnability 2 years from now.
It will not affect how the process will go on in terms of hearing it, in terms of deliberations in the Committee on Justice. But I can tell you that it may affect how the voting will come out. I hope that we will be as independent as possible.
Over at the upper chamber, Senate President Tito Soto is expecting his colleagues to do their job if Duterte's impeachment goes to trial.
The senators are expected to be impartial always, no matter who is going to be charged or kanino mang articles of impeachment ang sumampa sa amin. We are expected to be impartial. So kahit kandidato, hindi kandidato, kahit sino pa yan, doesn't matter.
It seems, however, that a trial is still far from senators' mind. The VP's allies in the Senate welcomed the Duterte declaration to run for president.
We're in a democracy. For me, the earlier na lahat ng kandidato ay mag-announce better. Bakit? Kasi mas mahihimay nung lahat, mas bantay ang kanilang kilos. Of course, I wish her well.
Senator Bongo also gave his support to the daughter of his former boss, President Rodrigo Duterte. The ex-special assistant to the president, though, refused to comment when asked if he is open to being Sara's running mate.
Huwag muna natin pag-usapan yung politika po sa ngayon. Trabaho muna tayo. Yun ang kailangan ng Pilipino sa ngayon.
Senator Robin Padilla, on the other hand, floated a possible Sara-Amy tandem in 2028.
Sir, may we get your reaction lang, sir, dun sa pag-announce ni VP Sara ng kanyang presidential bid? Will you be supportive of her?
Of course. Siyempre naman.
But,
1,001,000,000%. Ano ako Sara Amy ako
Amy as VP, sir? Yan ang tinutulak niyo? You think, sir, handa ang Pilipino sa parehas na babaeng leader po?
Panahon na para maramdaman ng mga Pinoy ang girl power.
Ma'am, Sara Amy daw, sabi ni Senator Robin. Ay, sandali lang naman. Sir, si Robin talaga.
Well, kung sa bagay, talaga naman forever running mate ko naman talaga yan. Takbo, gapang, luhod, patayo, paupo, hindi ko naman siya kailanman iniwanan.
With VP Sara's presidential run now in play, the focus now shifts to the traditional opposition, who will be their candidate come 2028. Senate Deputy Majority Leader Risa Hontiveros, who is among those seeking for a united opposition, had this reply.
Ngayon, 2026, nakatutok ang mga reform-minded at opposition forces sa pagbubuo ng mas mahigpit pang pagkakaisa para pumili ng aming mga kandidato whether by the end of the year or first quarter of next year. Nandun kami sa proseso ng pagtatakda ng aming sariling timeline. So yung free will na binanggit ko kanina ay ginagamit na rin po namin sa sarili namin.
So, it remains that you will announce by end of the year or first quarter of 2027. Tama po ba?
Yun yung task that we have set ourselves.
Kapatid mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes, we are One News.
And hours after Duterte announced her 2028 bid, two lawmakers have endorsed a fourth impeachment complaint against her. Lawyer Nathaniel Cabrera lodged the complaint this evening before the office of the House Secretary General. It was endorsed by Deputy Speaker Paulo Ortega V and Manila Congressman Benny Abante. Cabrera's complaint contains 7 articles of impeachment hinged on the following grounds: culpable violation of the Constitution, betrayal of public trust, graft and corruption, bribery, and other high crimes. The first 3 filings are not yet deemed initiated. Speaker Bojidi has until March 2 to include them in the House plenary's order of business, after which they will be referred to the House Committee on Justice.
Now, meanwhile, President Bongbong Marcos's reaction to his estranged vice president's announcement for a 2028 run was short and arguably sweet. According to Palace Press Officer Claire Castro, the chief executive had 2 words to the VP's announcement: good luck. Mr. Marcos did utter the phrase while smiling. It is Undersecretary Castro, though, who is not taking Duterte's recent rebuke of the administration lightly.
Ang taong bayan ang naghalal kay Pangulong Marcos Jr. Kung ano man po ang natulong niya, pareho naman po sila nagtulungan dahil ito ay unity team. Kaya wag niya pong solohin ang credit kung nanalo man ang Pangulo. At nakikita ngayon ng Pangulo at rather ng mga kababayan natin kung sino ba nagtatrabaho. Isang working president compared sa vice presidente.
Castro likewise blasted the vice president's statement that she resigned from the Marcos cabinet because she did not want any part in a corrupt 2025 national budget. Among others, the palace spokesperson said VP Sara should be sorry for how she used confidential funds and look the other way when it came to supposedly non-existent flood control projects in the Duterte bailiwick of Davao. Castro also said Duterte should apologize for her foreign trips and for accepting the Education Secretary post when she knew nothing about it.
Una po, mas dapat niyang inunang humingi ng tawad sa taong bayan, lalong-lalo na sa mga biktima ng EJK. Dapat niya rin pong ihingi ng tawad at nakalimutan niya nang siya ay magsabing mayroon siyang kilalang assassin at handa siyang magpapatay. At ang assassin na to ay nag-agree or sumang-ayon sa kanyang plano. Dapat ihingi niya rin ng tawad ang mga fake news na ibinandera niya sa taong bayan.
Meantime, Castro is confident that Duterte's ambition to become president will not affect impeachment complaints against her. And then, there's Castro's parting shot.
Meron nga po tayong kasabihan at ito'y nabanggit ko na. Ang pagkakaiba ng politician at ng statesman. Ang politician, ang iniisip, ang susunod na eleksyon. Ang statesman, ang iniisip, ang susunod na henerasyon.
Now let's talk about today's developments with our first guest, political strategist Alan Herman. Good evening to you, Alan. Welcome to The Big Story.
Hi, Ces, Shawn, and Pauline. Always happy to be at joining you at The Big Story. And look, I brought an earpiece, so I don't have to be keep on sticking my ear next to my phone, unlike last time.
All right. Well, would you agree that this was, if we were playing a game of chess, VP Sara made a good move?
Absolutely. It's one-upmanship. I mean, at the end of the day, politics is all about one-upmanship. In our business, we call this, well, it's a double win in the sense that she was able to first put forth a very strong narrative anchor, which is, I'm running for president so that anything they do against me, beginning now, is politically driven, and they're only doing this to weaken my presidential bid. So that's the first one. That's a good narrative anchor. And second, she was able to hang a negative on her opponents and her critics. Again, with this one announcement, anything that her critics may throw against her will have that political tinge. But the reality is, was anybody surprised? I mean, I don't think anybody fell off their seats, or I don't think any chairs were rattled, plates were broken with this announcement. We were expecting it, but the timing was the big story here.
On the other hand, though, we know that those who announce too early in the game, kasi, as you said, it's all about timing, are also, become a magnet for those for rivals, for all these attacks. Although, well, she's taken a lot already.
Of hits. If we're just talking about historical data, and again, let's be agnostic about the data, no?
Okay.
You're absolutely correct in pointing that out. Everybody who was announced first did eventually not make it. At least historical data up to the time we can recall, at least the time I was a voter. It has been that has been the trend, which is fairly recent, by the way. Being as to, I've only recently voted, being a Gen Zer and whatnot. And by the way, those laughs are dragging my self-esteem down. But you're right, because they're usually critics. They're usually a magnet. Early, consolidations will form against you. There will be, at least in terms of quote-unquote telegraphing your moves, you're already out and open with it. But again, I go back to my earlier point being, I don't think anybody was really surprised. I think this had to have crossed the political calculus of everybody else, at least gunning for the top spot. So let's see if history will again repeat itself in this case.
So is her audience those who will vote on a possible passing of the impeachment complaint to the Senate?
As from where I sit and as far as I'm concerned, absolutely. This is like I said earlier, I don't think this wasn't an announcement so much as it is a message. She was sending a strong message, especially to the congressmen. Now the lines are drawn. The lines are clearly drawn. This is no longer a line. This is a chasm. Very, very. I'm just to remind you, I'm running, and in 2028, I'm the front runner, at least for now. And if you want a political future after 2028. This is where I'm drawing the line. At least I think that was the intention. If that wasn't the intention, that probably did hit several congressmen that way. That she was sending a message saying, eto na, pumili na kayo, tatakbo ako, pag binoto ninyo yung impeachment na yan, pag-isip-isipan nyo na lang kung anong mangyayari pag ako naging presidente.
Although, of course, we know that Malacanang always has a hand or looks at this very closely, even if, the president had denied being involved in the last impeachment complaint. So ngayon ba, sa tingin mo, mas a-action na ang mga allies ni BBM sa Kongreso?
Well, yun yung magiging net effect sa tingin ko. Whether or not, of course, I'm not going to... I'm not in a position to provide commentary whether this is orchestrated or this is being strategized by any political advisor and or the president himself. But definitely this will have that effect. Opponents will consolidate. Opponents will say, eto na, nagpakita na. Dati nasa radar pa lang eh. Di ba? Think of it like, I don't wanna compare our Vice President to Godzilla. My God, that's just awful. For some reason, it's the first thing that entered my mind. Nakikita ninyo na eh, di ba? Blip on the radar. Ito, pagtingin ninyo, nandiyan na, emerged from the sea, already there in the cityscape. So this will have that very, very, I don't want to say visceral, but the opposition should really rally and make this already a magnetic call to consolidate.
Okay, let's get to the opposition in a bit. Alan, I wanted to ask you about the quote-unquote form and substance of her speech. It was very, very short. But also, she looked really, really good, in my opinion anyways. Very fresh, very calm. What did you think? I mean, you're into that line of work. What was your assessment?
The nonverbals.
Yeah, the nonverbal, the optics.
I think there was a audio-visual lock. Siguro, no, I hate to be that guy and go all technical and try to make myself appear more clever than I am. Lord knows that's a difficult job. But in terms of audio-visual lock, kasi, if you look at the essence and the spirit of her speech, essentially she is saying, I'm liberated, I'm free, I have accepted my role. I am charging into the destiny that was carved out for me. I have fought against it before. I have tried to sway away from that, but now I am accepting it. And her body language, I have to agree with you, Shawn. It did reflect that. She does look like a burden has been lifted. I would have made the sentences less choppy, I wish. And number two, it was red. I would have maybe put more effort into having her deliver that a little bit more extemporaneously. But otherwise, yeah, and it was a good speech. And I would have taken a couple of questions after. Because what happened was after she made the announcement, she just walked out, refused to answer any questions. I would have maybe taken one or two questions after that.
To be fair to her though, Alan, I mean, Tagalog/Filipino is not her,
Yes.
It's not her lingua franca, di ba? Bisaya kasi siya.
Yes.
So I was thinking
Bisaya siya.
maybe she was trying to deliver in a Filipino, but that could be why she was halting, or do you think it was an effect?
Well, I'm not sure what the actual split is, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the speech was delivered in English. So yeah, I do believe that might play a factor, that she is Bisaya by upbringing. Siguro tama ka in the first language, and probably she didn't want to make mistakes. But again, I'm splitting hairs here.
Yeah.
If I were just to really nitpick, I would have pointed that out. But otherwise, I thought it was well delivered.
Well, President Bongbong Marcos only had 2 words to say on the announcement of Vice President Sara Duterte, and their good luck. What did you make of that, Alan?
Good luck, bulaklak, sabi ni Presidente, di ba? Good luck, bulaklak. I mean, I like that. If I were advising him in any way, shape, or form, I would have probably said something more institutional, like every Filipino has the right to seek the presidency. That is her right. On our end, we are focused on delivering reforms and working towards making the lives of Filipinos better. And good luck to her. I would have probably, made that little prelude before the good luck. But really, the president is caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to these things, di ba? If he says too much, affected. If he doesn't say anything, disconnected. So it's really hard to find that right balance being the president. So I suppose good luck was captured everything in one very, very short phrase. Good luck. Yeah.
What about Claire Castro's rebuke? Mas mahaba yung sa kanya. She repeated good luck. She repeated good luck. She had a list, a bullet point list. Oh, tsaka meron pa siyang print out, di ba? Nung parang...
Right.
Right. So what did you make of that? Was that a bit defensive? I mean, obviously, that was prepared.
Well, earlier you said, Shawn, that your personal opinion was that VP Inday looked good, etc., etc. My personal opinion, kasi I like Auntie Claire. I like her. I think she's swell. I think she's a swell gal. And, she does her job very, very well. I think she is very, very underrated as a lightning rod. Kasi yun naman ang papel ni Auntie Claire sa administration. She's the one that absorbs all the lightning, the thunder that was intended for the admin and the palace. So in very typical Auntie Claire fashion, she came out and had that rant to say as a reaction to the announcement of VP Inday. So I thought that it was very authentic and ano siya, quintessential Auntie Claire.
Sa tingin mo ba the House of Congress will now opt for the third option? We'll look at the third option wherein they can now all
Fast track? The
fast track, yeah, the fast track option. Hindi na dadaan sa Justice Committee. Oo.
I think that would be an exercise in absolute foolishness. That's my soundbite for today. Amidst this terrible lighting, my goodness, I look like a truffle.
You actually look like you have a tan, like you got you came from the beach or something. What
I look
happened?
like a truffle, man. It's
Okay.
it's terrible. If my audio's not bad, it's my lighting. I'm telling you, tong Big Story, never ako nakakaano dito. I never get it right.
Sige.
We'll get you
Ibig
here
sabihin-
one day so we can all have
Dito na
equal
lang.
lighting.
But yeah, okay, so
Right.
that will be bad kung gagawin nila yung
Absolutely
okay.
bad. Pag fast track kasi nila yan, the impeachment process for me is a torch. It's not a hatchet. So the impeachment process is something that you use to shed light, not to cut anybody from the vine. So the more that there are hearings that will distill, that will shed light on anomalies, the more that, sorry for the very, very colloquial term, pero the more na kaya ninyong pikunin yung kaaway ninyo to make them lose their cool, that's where the value of these impeachment hearings lie for me as a political strategist. So if they're just going to fast track that, send it to the Senate, and then cross their fingers and toes and hope that members of the minority will switch, for me that would be a really, really ill-advised move. Let it season, let it percolate in Congress, because at least that gives people a chance to see, ano ba itong pinag-uusapan nila? Bakit ba gustong i-impeach tong si VP Inday? Tapos maglalabas ng bank accounts, maglalabas ng actual proof, resibo, etc., etc. For me, nandun ang value.
Right, Alan, so now that the Vice President has made her announcement, which didn't really come as a surprise, as you mentioned, what should the opposition be doing this time? Would you say her early declaration is now a catalyst for them to start announcing their plans?
The opposition, I think, should meet in a badly lit Japanese restaurant and start consolidating and start actually taking themselves very, very seriously in coming forth with alliances and a consolidated candidate na iisa lang. The best part about the Filipino, well, not the best part. Actually, no. Let me wind that back. The thing I detest most, and yet is working for us in this case for the opposition, is that you elect the president and the vice president separately. So you can actually make tandems that will complement each other in terms of trying to get a voter base, in trying to draw from each other's strengths and not cannibalize, so that you will have at least a Hail Mary pass chance to beat the juggernaut being presented in the form of Vice President
Are you
Sara
talking about
Duterte.
an alliance, Alan, between the administration and the traditional opposition?
Orange is the new black, sabi nila, di ba? Red plus yellow equals orange. Hindi. Yes, absolutely. If there are more than, well, I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of it and bore you with game theory and such, but it has to be a consolidated candidate talaga. If the intention is to try to take down or to try to beat the Greens, the Duterte camp. And that has to be very thought of in terms of who is going to be number one, the president, and who is going to be number two, the vice president. So there's talks of Risapam, for example. For me, that's crazy. You're just going to have the same number of voters. You're not bringing anything new to the table. So parang ganon. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that there's any talk.
And quickly, the timing. Dapat before the end of the year. Is first quarter 2027 too late?
I think, well, ideally sa amin, it's 18 months. No? The ideal time to announce is about 18 months. the ideal time to start building, kasi di ba stay, stray, and sway yan, consolidate, convince, and control. You should be going through that exercise ideally 5 months ago. Dapat ginagawa na yan ng mga magagaling na political strategists. Buti na lang wala akong kilalang magaling na political strategist.
Okay, on that note, we thank you for joining us tonight. Punta ka na sa studio next time so you can make use of our very good audio and lighting.
My goodness, you ladies are positively glowing, di ba? Ang gaganda ninyo, tapos here I am, di ba? The charcoal man. I mean, I swear.
We thank the political strategist, Alan Herman.
Thanks.
Well, lots happening on the political front, but we're not forgetting the flood control scandal. Still ahead. How are cases moving along at the Justice Department when it comes to allegedly anomalous infrastructure contracts? We get updates from DOJ spokesperson Attorney Polo Martinez next. Keep it here on The Big Story.
The Big Story is back with a clarification from the Justice Department. The DOJ says it did not and cannot authorize former Public Works Secretary Manny Bonoan's travel back to the United States. Recall that a precautionary hold departure order was issued by the Manila Regional Trial Court against Bonoan and others over the flood control scandal. The issuance was announced Monday, the same day Bonoan filed his counter affidavit with the DOJ. The former DPWH chief claimed he informed the agency about his plans to go back to the U.S. for his wife's surgery and that he has secured approval from the DOJ for it. But Justice Secretary Frederick Vida says under the terms of the precautionary HDO, Bonoan has to secure the court's approval before flying overseas. In November last year, Bonoan left for the U.S. via Taiwan under a less stricter immigration lookout bulletin order.
And to allow or not to allow, because travel is basically a personal liberty, di ba? Karapatan ng bawat Pilipino bumiyahe. Unless merong court process or may court order na nagbabawal sa'yo. Based on what I got, the information I got, meron ng precautionary hold departure order si Secretary Bonoan. So with that, any permit or any allowance for you to travel, kailangan na ng court order. Ang Department of Justice, we do not allow you or grant you the right to travel. Yung isinulat niya sa amin, nagsabi siya na ta-travel siya. Diba? So, it's not true that we allowed, no? In fact, ngayon, kailangan niya magpaalam sa korte. Hiningi namin yung itinerary niya, saan siya pupunta. And of course, nagkaroon ng konting issue doon kasi hindi naman siya bumalik doon sa original date. Again, another move ng prosecutor, the state, really here is baka flight risk kasi yung ibang respondent. Kaya humihingi ng precautionary hold departure order. Na yun naman yung binigay ng korte.
Now to get more clarification on this and other issues, we're bringing in Attorney Polo Martinez, spokesperson for the Justice Department. Welcome back to The Big Story, Attorney Martinez.
Good evening, Ms. Tess. Good evening, Shawn, Howie. Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with, can you distinguish the difference between a precautionary HDO and an HDO?
Okay, so it's all about the timing. When is it actually filed? So a precautionary hold departure order, so by the terminal precautionary, meaning na before the complaint is lodged with the courts, before trial has commenced, specifically during the conduct of preliminary investigation for the DOJ, dun siya ina-apply. So that's where we, just as a precaution, in anticipation of the fact that these respondents or individuals may evade prosecution, yung tinatawag nating flight risk. So it's all about when exactly you file it. A hold departure order, on the other hand, is filed during the conduct of the proceedings before the courts. So doon na yun mismo as to the effect, they're pretty much the same.
All right. And what made Bonoan understand that he had been already given permission by the DOJ?
Well, Ms. Cess, I'd like to clarify. Permission to travel is not something that the DOJ can give. Kasi ano yan we are not, again, just to echo Secretary Vida, the right to travel is constitutional. That goes into the personal liberty of a person. It's a constitutional right, and as we know, only the courts have the power to adjudicate or control rights. And so far as the DOJ is concerned, any permission that he may have requested with the DOJ was simply a gesture of perhaps his good faith. But at the end of the day, because of the precautionary hold departure order, it's really the courts now who have control over whatever right he has to travel.
So what former Secretary Bonoan said was because he misunderstood it?
Well, you could perhaps, that's a I think an accurate way to put it. What we know, what the prosecutor handling the case did tell us is that former Secretary Bonoan filed a manifestation before them, asking for an earlier date to file his counter affidavit. So he wanted to file earlier on the ground that he was going to visit his wife in the United States. Now, whether or not, irrespective of the reason, the prosecutors would have granted him, exercise leniency in granting him that earlier date to file. But again, the right to travel is constitutional. It's not for the DOJ to control or to dictate upon, no?
So, Attorney, my understanding is a precautionary hold departure order. That is kumbaga, nabibigay ito ng regional trial court upon the request of the DOJ, tama ba? And also, it can be lifted temporarily by that same RTC, but it has to be the court that you ask, and it has to be them that actually makes the decision to lift it.
Very correct. It's an accurate way to describe it. Just to explain the process of how the PHDO is applied for. It begins upon the filing of a motion by the complainant. In this case, it's the NBI. Sila nag-file ng complaint before the DOJ for these cases, or for this plunder case specifically. So upon filing of the motion, alleging that these respondents may be flight risks, the DOJ prosecutor then, in charge of conducting the preliminary investigation, files the proper application with the court, that being, in this case, RTC Manila, requesting for the issuance of the precautionary hold departure order on the ground that there is the law says, the wording of the law says that there is a high probability that the respondent may evade arrest or prosecution. So flight risk.
And how does the court, attorney, determine if an individual is flight risk?
That's upon the court's own assessment, no? Based on the quantum of proof of probable cause. So the court assesses the evidence submitted before it, looks into the facts and circumstances surrounding the particular individual subject of the application.
Would you say, is it because they have the resources, they have the power to evade arrest?
That's a possible reason, no? And only the court could really say. Sabi namin is that we do know back then that former Secretary Bonoan requested or advised the DOJ that he would be leaving for the States to attend to his wife's medical procedure. He, as his gesture of good faith, he provided us a date na babalik siya. We do know, though, that he did not return on that date exact. Parang araw after siya bumalik. So just to avoid a similar situation from happening, we granted the motion by the NBI to apply for the PHDO.
And it's the respondent's responsibility to find out whether they have a precautionary HDO, or how are they informed that there is one?
So normally, they're not really notified of it. I think the difference between the application for a precautionary hold departure order, and one thing that I was able to mention earlier, with respect to the proceedings for a hold departure order, is that since it's precautionary, it's done ex parte. What does ex parte mean? Ex parte is that the court will only hear the side of the person filing the application or petition. So normally kasi pag court proceeding, di ba, pag file ng complaint ng isang complainant or petitioner, you necessarily have to furnish the respondents of the same petition.
Ito
Ex parte,
hindi.
no need. There's no need. You file the petition, court will hear the evidence, of the petitioner or complainant alone, and then determine whether or not probable cause exists to issue the same PhD.
So that's not a violation of their right.
It's not, no.
I know where I just want to ask, it's on another issue. Was atong ang also the subject of a precautionary HDO?
As far as I know, he was not.
That is strange. That is strange to me.
Although a motion was filed, that I can say kasi
Hindi ginrant ng court.
Well, perhaps hindi nag-grant ng court agad. Maybe the evidence was not sufficient yet for them to apply for the PhDO. Only the prosecutors in charge of that case could really tell. But what we could say is, as standard protocol, malamang they did file a motion. The complainant in that case, now I'm referring to,
But
and
is
that
it
the
also-
application was filed.
Sorry. May you...
Can you repeat the last sentence, attorney?
I'm sorry. So I was saying that as a matter of standard procedure, the application is in fact filed in these cases when they see that there is a flight risk sa mga respondents na to. As to whether or not the court, as to why the court did not grant it in time, or as to whether or not the application was filed in due time. Again, I'm not certain at what stage the petition or the application is currently sitting. But it will go into the evidence perhaps. Baka at that point in time, hindi pa sapat yung evidence for them to be able to allege that probable cause does exist that this person is a flight risk.
So is it possible na actually may PhD na siya and we just don't know? Because like you said, it's possible na magkakaalaman na lang sa airport because you don't really get a letter or a call that, oh, by the way, you have a PhD against you.
But it's announced to the public, isn't it? No. No, also?
Hindi kailangan i-announce it. That's the
okay.
thing.
And then what's the procedure? I wanted to, okay, if the court grants it, it immediately alerts the Bureau of Immigration.
That's correct. Yes, no, that's correct.
Okay, so attorney, this precautionary whole departure order also covers former DPWH officials Roberto Bernardo, Henry Alcantara, and Gerard Opulencia, but we know that they've already been named as state witnesses. So do you mean there's reason to believe that they could still flee from the charges they're facing?
The court's assessment is that there is probable cause, that they may, high probability, probable cause that there is high probability of them leaving. So I guess it's safe to say that the court really did deem them a flight risk, that they could still leave. I think mas material pa ngayon yung PhDO because in the event that we would need them to testify before the individuals that are wrapped up in these cases, then at least now it has more compelling force because of the PhDO.
But if they're state witnesses, they're already accepted as state witnesses, and then you put the PhDO, which means you're not really sure of their willingness to cooperate, or is it just like a plan B in case something goes wrong? I mean, forgive me, attorney, but it sounds a little bit contradictory.
No. Ito kasi yan. So let's say you're a state witness. What does that mean? It means that you executed a memorandum of agreement, which is a contract essentially with the WPP, the Witness Protection Program. The contract says that you have commitments that you have to fulfill for the state. You agreed to do these in exchange for being made a state witness. But at the end of the day, like any other contract, Shawn, anyone could renege on it. It's your lease contract with your lessor, you could renege on it. Your contract with the buyer or seller of a product, he or she could renege on it. So I guess what this PhDO just ensures that despite the freedom of abode that you currently have, the personal liberty for you to travel, again, the right to travel is sacred, constitutionally yan. The court itself that says or ordered na flight risk ka. Okay? I know you have a right to travel. I know there's a possibility for you to renege on your obligations. But here is an order saying that you cannot leave the country unless you get our permission first.
Now let's move on, attorney, to the preliminary investigation of senators implicated in the flood control scandal. What's the update on that?
Okay, so let's just backtrack a bit. We know that the filing of the flood control cases came in 3 batches. So the first batch, 5 cases in the first batch, all concerned a certain contractor, that being Sims Construction and Trading, by Sally Santos, who is also a state witness. So out of the 5, 2 have been referred to the Ombudsman. One of those 2 was already filed with the Sandigan Bayan, and that's the same case involving former Senator Bong Revilla.
Right.
So that's a malversation case. The other 2 have been resolved for release, meaning na submitted for resolution. The resolution shall be issued soon. It's just being finalized. So that's the first batch. Second batch of cases, referred to either of 2 contractors. It's Wawaw Construction or Top Notch Catalyst Builders. Again, the main charge in these cases is malversation through falsification by a public officer. Included in those charges would be direct bribery, indirect bribery. There's a light offense of perjury. And these 6 cases are all, as of February 1, 2026, have also been submitted for resolution. Meaning, pag submitted for resolution, lahat ng ebidensya ng complainant and respondent have been submitted. There's nothing more to submit. What's left to do is for the prosecutors to read the evidence, assess it, and see if there is prima facie evidence to file the case in court. Now, dun sa 6 na yun, 3, so half of those cases actually involve Senator Joel Villanueva. So those are all submitted for resolution 2.
Okay.
And then the third batch, yun yung mga high-profile cases na sinasabi natin. Yun yung mga plunder, among other charges. So that involves 3 high-profile personalities, Senator Jinggoy, Senator Bong, and former Representative Zaldico. As far as I know, these are all, the Zaldico case has been submitted for resolution. Yung kay Senator Jinggoy, well, that's the same case wherein the PHDO was issued sa third batch na yon, sa case na isa doon. And all his correspondents were also affected by this PHDO. So, and we're expecting more cases to come to be filed by the NBI. And I think one thing that I need to clarify procedurally is because these cases are cognizable by the Sandigan Bayan, under the law, we have to refer these to the Ombudsman, who has final say kung tatanggapin nila yung recommendation namin or not. So, in fact, pag-refer namin or transmit ng resolutions namin to the Ombudsman, it has to make its own independent review resolution kung tama pa sinabi namin, if they agree with us, and then they file it to Sandigan Bayan.
Okay. So the timeline, we're talking weeks.
Yes, for the cases submitted for resolution.
Yeah. Or days.
Yes, under Department Circular number 15 by the DOJ, we have 60 days. 60 days here to resolve it from the time that it was filed before us. So, and one thing we have to note is these cases were not all filed simultaneously. Again, it came in 3 batches. And even the cases per batch, they were not filed at the same time. So they're all progressing, ongoing in various different timelines. And iba doon may pending incident. So, but again, I think what we could say is we have 60 days to resolve it from the time of filing, extendable by another 30, so 90 days in total.
Malapit na, in other words. Thank you for talking to us, DOJ spokesperson, Attorney Polo Martinez.
Thank you.
And at this point, we now have news coming out of the upper chamber, beginning with Senator Bam Aquino's stance on extrajudicial killings now driving a wedge among traditional opposition players. Aquino's own allies are criticizing him for saying that drug war killings should first be tried in local courts before the International Criminal Court, or ICC, comes into the picture. Sonny Trillanes called the statement insensitive and unfair. The former senator wonders if Aquino is trying to score points with Duterte supporters on this. For her part, former Finance Undersecretary Shelo Magno believes EJKs are state-sponsored crimes with institutions compromised to perpetuate them. And again, Senator Aquino said in an ideal situation, EJK cases should be tried in the Philippines since all the victims are here. He added that he respects the process at the ICC, where former President Rodrigo Duterte will face his confirmation of charges hearings next week. Amid the criticism, Aquino said he will issue another statement on the matter.
Meantime, Minority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano says his bloc is preparing a resolution expressing the sense of the Senate that Philippine courts must be respected. This is in light of possible ICC warrants against Senators Bongo and Bato de la Rosa after they were named co-perpetrators in the Duterte drug war case. Unlike de la Rosa, who has not been seen at the Senate since November, Go says he has no plans of missing sessions, emphasizing that he has a mandate to fulfill. And we need to pause for another quick breather, but still to come. Will former President Rodrigo Duterte physically appear at his confirmation of charges hearing before the ICC on February 23? The answer when the big story returns. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the big story. Former President Rodrigo Duterte is asking the International Criminal Court's permission to skip his confirmation of charges hearing next week. Duterte cited 3 reasons for waiving his right to appear. First, he does not recognize the ICC's jurisdiction, claiming that his arrest was a form of kidnapping. Second, the former president denies the existence of extrajudicial killings during his drug war. And third, Duterte says he will just forget these legal proceedings anyway because he is old, tired, and frail. Digong adds he has accepted that he may die while in detention and that he is proud of his legacy.
Now here are the other stories making headlines this midweek, starting with the asylum application of former presidential spokesman Harry Roque. Speaking from Austria, Roque told our sister program Storycon that he has already completed his initial interview and that a decision on his asylum will be made after a second interview. And because he is an asylum seeker, Roque has requested the Interpol not to place him under red notice.
I filed a motion for reconsideration, that I cannot be a fugitive from justice given that I have invoked my right to seek asylum, and it's in the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that everyone has a right to seek asylum. I got an answer from the Interpol that they have accepted my petition to delist me on the basis that as an asylum seeker, EU regulations prohibit that I be put in the alert notice. They accepted the opposition and asked that I submit English translations of proof that I have sought asylum in both the Netherlands and in Austria. So far, I have conferred regularly with Austrian authorities that I am not in the red alert notice. I don't know if I'm delisted, but I can confirm I am not in the red alert notice.
Meanwhile, back here at home, former Speaker Jose de Venecia Jr. has been laid to rest at talibingan ng mga bayani. Among those who paid their final respects were former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo and Defense Secretary Gilbert Teodoro. De Venecia died on February 10 at the age of 89.
Meantime, at the NBI, vlogger Jack Argota explained why he posted supposedly fake medical records of President Bongbong Marcos. Argota admitted that he only posted them, quote, for the views. The NBI has also filed cyber libel cases against former broadcaster Jay Sonza and online personality Jeff.
Have a good night.